Hi, my name is Joe Clarke, and today we're going to be talking about Tanzu and licensing. Let's break down some of the pricing and packaging. So let's talk about Tanzu. There's been a little bit of confusion in the community about, what editions are what and how is it broken down and how is it licensed. So let's just take a minute to pull some of that apart and take a look at how you can actually acquire some of the VMware Tanzu technology. So when we talk about TKG, there's actually two different editions, right? So there's TKG M and TKG I. And what this stands for is Multi-Cloud Edition, and it also stands for Integrated Edition. And if you recall, the Pivotal acquisition, PKS, was actually TKGI, and TKGM is the new product that has come about since the Heptio acquisition. So then let's talk about, with TKG, some of the different pricing and packaging that is available. So standard TKG effectively gives you Kubernetes management. That's effectively it. You can upgrade, you can do all sorts of good things, but it's a Kubernetes runtime at the core of what TKG is, right? There's also Tanzu Standard. And when we look at Tanzu Standard, there's a couple more things that they add to the picture here. Tanzu Mission Control is the eye in the sky that allows you to manage and oversee and apply compliance policies to all your Kubernetes clusters, whether they are run in TKG or externally. With Tanzu Standard, we get TMC Standard, and we can break down the pricing and packaging and additions of Tanzu Standard in one of the subsequent videos, but we're trying to rock and roll through. Another product that's included in Tanzu Standard is the NSX ALB Essentials. And the ALB Essentials is effectively load balancing and ingress for Kubernetes applications. Also in Tanzu Standard is a large number of plugins that you can have to just drop right in, HA Proxy and others that you can have that are just included, and that life cycle of those particular products are actually managed and supported by VMware. So another great addition to help you get more towards that production readiness. And Valero is a project that VMware also supports that allows you to actually back up and protect some of those workloads that you might have running in those Kubernetes clusters. And that's Tanzu Standard. When we look at Tanzu Advanced, that used to be a tier, and then there was Tanzu Enterprise. Some of that has changed, where it used to be Tanzu Essentials, Standard, Advanced, and Enterprise. And now this has been replaced by a product called TKO, which stands for Tanzu Kubernetes for Operators. And this basically says, what do we have? We have Tanzu Mission Control Advanced. So we have an upgraded version of Tanzu Mission Control. We also have a more advanced version of the NSX ALB product. So we have the NSX ALB Advanced as well. Also included is Tanzu Service Mesh, and that allows us to effectively stretch our networking between Kubernetes clusters, between clouds if need be. And finally, something else that really helps make our production readiness go way up is a product called Tanzu Observability, which is the product formerly known as Wavefront. And with Wavefront, or Tanzu Observability as it's now called, and TSM, or Tanzu Service Mesh, which is effectively managed Istio, if you're familiar with the Istio project. Now let's talk just for a quick second about how this is broken down and how this is actually licensed. When we're examining how TKG is actually licensed, there are two main mechanisms and ways that this can be done. Because this can be run on vSphere, or it can also be run in AWS and in Azure, there are some differences in how we might license that. One of the ways that we might license that is per physical CPU. And that is actually done per core on each CPU. So the number of cores that you have on the underlying infrastructure is actually what you would license. Another way is per infrastructure unit, or IU. Now, what makes up an infrastructure unit? That's a question that comes up when you're asking, because how much of this do I actually need in order to run my environment? And the answer is you actually need your virtual cores divided by 2 times the CPU that you would be using. And that's how you end up with a IU number that you would actually need, and you would price around that. Now let's talk about vSphere with Tanzu. And vSphere with Tanzu comes in effectively 2 different editions, but one of the most important parts about this is that vSphere with Tanzu is effectively, it's pretty much just running on vSphere, right? TKG, the big picture is it was meant to be multi-cloud. You can run this on your hyperscalers. vSphere with Tanzu is targeted towards vSphere as the infrastructure provider under the hood. Okay, so there are 2 different vSphere with Tanzu editions. There is the standard edition, and then there is the advanced edition. And again, when we look at the standard edition, it's effectively Kubernetes management. You get the Kubernetes engine, you get the basic gist. You get the capabilities of provisioning, upgrading, and traditional standard Kubernetes management built right into vSphere, and you can use those capabilities. With advanced, there's a couple more things that get added in, and watch this magic trick. With advanced, we get a lot more functionality than with standard for vSphere with Tanzu. We get full lifecycle management, the ability to manage multiple clusters. We get cluster scaling and self-healing. We get Carbon Black integration, NSXT, and VROPS integration as well. And we can sort of see that with vSphere with Tanzu, the advanced edition gives you more integration with that VMware portfolio and more management capabilities as well. And when we look at how that's actually licensed, it becomes a little bit simpler. That is licensed per physical CPU here. So the number of cores is something that has become important since vSphere 7, as you know. It is true here as well. And there are some minimums that have been cited in documentation, so we have to be aware of that. I believe the minimum is 16. And right now it is April of 2023, so this information is accurate as of today. It can always change. But as of right now today, this is how it's broken down. And I think it's important to note that there are some of these things that are actually included in some of the new vSphere Plus licensing bundles. So if that's of interest, some of this functionality can actually be acquired through the new vSphere subscriptions, either the Enterprise Plus subscription model or the vSphere Plus licensing model. So I hope this was a good quick look at how Tanzu is licensed and broken apart, and maybe gives you some better understanding of the software that's included in the portfolio. Thanks for watching.